I was watching this video on can you take a joke on Prime, and I only got a third of the way through it, and the thing that I don't think very many people understand um, is there's good and bad comics, and then there's people now kind of in between, and I don't understand. And they say, well, people are uptight; they can't take, this kind of humor, that's offensive, and there's hecklers in the audience, and don't come to my comedy if you can't take the words or stuff like that. And the thing is that the comedy today sucks way more because people are very opinionative. They tend to be polarized. They tend to take a common side. They don't. It's like they don't have a mind of their own, And so what they do is uh, there are some that don't respect anybody. People, religion, or anything. They don't respect anybody, and they will, get they will abuse whatever it is. And the thing that's really dumb about that is that if you don't understand the audience, if you completely disregard your audience, what they're as a comedian, if you're going to tell a joke and it's going to risk being offensive, you need to understand something about the world, whether you like it or not. Especially if, things like Judaism and Christianity and Hinduism and Buddhism and all those isms out there, because if you're going to have a joke that touches on anything in that area and you do not understand the worldview of the person that you're stepping over, they're going to get offensive and might even get destructive. But they need to keep in mind what their religion is about, and if they're and that could be actually a thing you could do with a joke, is if you understand their religion and you're able to make a well calculated joke that makes fun of something and they get offended by it, they're going to get up and heckle you, and then you can turn to, say, the Bible and say, right here it says this, and that's kind of what this means. That person's going to get rebuked. And if they can't take that, then you say, Jesus said, you've got to take rebuke. If you can't take rebuke, then that's the thing. You have to be receptive to rebuke. And there isn't enough comedians that actually think deep. They tend not to trust anything. They think everybody lies. They prey upon whatever is the consensus of people's viewpoints, according to whatever's been sensationalized that week or that year, you know. And when somebody comes up with a heckle, the comedian needs to think a little bit about how to approach their heckle, you know. And in this case, there was this college campus comedian. Well, some of the examples they gave, and he was talking about how women, and this is his point of view, is that how women were picking, stuff that's more geared towards emotions, and women do tend to take a certain side. They need to look at the symbol that represents female and male. The female is represented by a vanity mirror. The male is represented by a shield and a sword. That's how you remember the symbols. That's what those symbols mean. And they're stereotypical. So if you're going to use those symbols, you need to understand what they're representative of. And guys don't tend to care about looks of anything. Some do, some don't, but most don't. And makeup and trying to look presentable and all that stuff doesn't mean shit to me. And there are women who are also that way. There are also women who are more into the vanity. There are women that are computer programmers and had some in my computer science department. There are women who are in math. There are women in sciences and stuff. It's just that how can you tell if, I mean, what this comedian was doing, I think, was that he was communicating what he thought was going on. And then he was still trying to push it. And the other people in the audience, I need to see something. Go into the next room. She's very sensitive. See, we're not sensitive enough. And that's the reason why people are getting easily offended and stuff. But the thing that gets me is that there are words that we're afraid to say. And the reason why we're afraid to say is because we're afraid of, as I was saying in one of my previous videos, that I think people hide behind. They figure that they're politically correct. They figure that they're okay, and that they can define themselves as not racist if they've not said the N-word, but completely ignore everything else that racism is. If they stereotype black people, as being basketball players, as being rappers or things like that, or not being scientists, not seeing them as mathematicians or black political science guys, and they're black people that do everything in the world, but the white people are afraid. Some of them are really afraid of black people because of all of the stereotypes in the past. I'm talking my generation. All the stereotypes in the past on TV shows and stuff always portrayed black people as aggressive and mean and stuff. And that's not the case. It's just the way things were portrayed on TV. And the people that I've been around, I went on sales. It was like electric sales thing, and we had a few members of our group were black, and had to go up to doors and confront people in their homes. And there was one lady that backed away from one of our guys who was black, and he sensed that she was afraid of him, and backed away, and was afraid to be near him. And he was so upset and saddened by that, for a good bit of a time during that run. And so, and I've talked with people who were black. There's no way I can ever probably say that I'm ever going to be anywhere near as black as I could be, to really be able to understand what it's like to be marginalized. But I had this crazy idea one day to try to get past the barrier of the N-word, because I think white people hide behind, or not white people, but just people who fail to identify um, with anybody, such as someone who might be a different color of skin. Um, to get past the words, and even though those words are racist words, the words don't make you racist. It's how you treat people that makes you racist or offensive to people. If you don't understand them, um, then it's going to be easy for you. Okay, if you don't understand someone, um, well, not saying the words is a good thing, but the thing is that they're not. That's not going to be possible. There's going to be someone, say somebody who's got Tourette's syndrome, is going to start saying racist words because that's what they do. They shout out words randomly and stuff, and somebody could pass them off as having Tourette's and doing that. And the thing is that what's offensive and what's racist about it, if it's just the word they're saying and they're saying it to everybody. Um, you would never say that to a black person, but um, if what I was trying to think about was in the future, it might get um, watered down and forgotten. There will probably be still people trying to use it. There are racist slang that was offensive in the past that nobody knows about now because like there's a racist term for Italian people called WAP, and it comes from doo wop, which was what members of Italians in the cities, I guess, are just considered to be Italian would sit, like a lot of Italian singers, and so in the 50s and 60s they'd collect on in the alleys and burst into song singing doo wop songs, and so they called them wops. But if you say that word a lot today, I doubt anybody of Italian descent's really going to care one lick. But if you say the N word, um, it holds a lot of pain, um, and I think it would be good to try to re to try to. I think it would be good if somebody came up with a documentary and called it the N word, and then goes into the history of 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 the slave of this of that the white man had taken black people out of Africa and out of Haiti and wherever it was that they brought them from. I don't really understand that part, but they brought these people in against their will, which reminds me of what happened with the Catholic Crusades, wasn't it? That that they were trying to convert everybody to Christianity, but even people that couldn't even speak English, they were going to do it forcefully, and it's completely against Jesus's sayings and everything. And the reason why they did that kind of thing had nothing to do with religion. It was all about conquering territory and controlling people, and the religion was really just used to maybe it converted people, but it was not the way to do it. And um, but the thing is I think the N word, people hide behind, and they think that if they don't say the word, then they're not racist, and they can still be racist. It can be all in the culture, and people just don't realize it. And um, I don't really know where the Black Lives Matter thing came from. I mean, what stimulated it? But my feeling of it is that It's it's a it's the idea is that it's systemic of our culture. This is what I believe. I need to go research this more, but my assumption is that it's in the culture that there's systemic racism in the culture. And it's really targeted at it mostly at blacks. But I don't know for sure. You know, you'd have to go and do some research and see how much is black and how much is Spanish and how much is, you know, but the thing is that you can't really tell the difference between some just looking at someone. You can't tell these days. You can't tell if somebody's Filipino versus them being um, Vietnamese versus being some different kind of. There are people that can't distinguish facial features that and colors that are of a specific race. And so the only ones that really stand out are the white people and the black people and the Spanish people. And how many others can you point out? How many other Chinese? I mean Asian, not Chinese. I was in school and there was a volleyball player who was Chinese, and I thought she was Japanese, and I started talking to her like she was Japanese, and she got offended, and I had no I couldn't tell the difference at the time. She was a professional volleyball player at New Mexico, at the University of New Mexico, which is where I was. So I've had all kinds of experiences like that, but the and I've talked to people of color and we've exchanged words, and I mean not mean. I mean we exchange philosophy, and more often than not, um, they approved of me. You know, they but they said I was kind of off the wall a little bit. I'm trying to. The thing is that I think what we need to do is be more sensitive, and then try to think of comedy that is not going to that's going to be unique and thoughtful rather than ignorant of everybody and offensive. You know, we need to stop going across lines, because what are you doing by that? Are you creating, you're creating divisions rather than breaking down barriers. The way you break down barriers is you try to find similarities between everybody. You don't try to offend everybody, you know. And there was this lady in that video who made her comedy specifically offensive, and she said in the video, I really hope that person gets AIDS. That AIDS find out these people. The thing people don't understand about AIDS, and maybe she understood this, maybe she didn't. Maybe she was trying to appeal to people who understood what it was, and that some people don't know what AIDS is. AIDS is the last 2 weeks of somebody who has HIV of their lives. It's when your immune system is not there, and everything that could kill you, that could give you trouble, it all comes in and kills you at once. That's what AIDS is. HIV is the actual virus. That's what you got. And so people who have HIV live long periods of time. In the last 2 weeks of their life is AIDS. Okay. And you can get AIDS without ever getting HIV, because AIDS is a syndrome. It's an autoimmune deficiency syndrome. And what it really just says is that did I all it all it really what it really means is it's it's the last nail in the coffin of what kills you um, when your immune system is gone. And we could say for everybody that's died of COVID that they all had AIDS. And that would offend some people because they would think that you meant HIV and they died of COVID. No, they died of AIDS. Their immune system was offline, and everything that could kill them killed them. Actually, in fact, it's even worse than that. The immune system kills you in the very end of COVID. So basically, your immune system can't like recognize any of this crap that's, and so it attacks everything in your body because it all looks foreign. I guess is the deal. So I couldn't watch that documentary very long because I'm familiar with these kinds of comics, and George Carlin I can put up with him, but there are new comics, student comics. I had heard that whenever um, Steve Martin, when he first started doing comedy, he did comedy about the Vietnam War and things, and was shoot off stage. And I watched his master class, and he said what he did is he shaved off his beard, cut his hair back to make himself presentable, and changed the nature of his comedy to be um, kind of flank or kind of be off the wall. You know, kind of like says, Are you high? No, no, I'm small." It says, "How small are you?" "Well, I can fit inside this balloon." You know, and that's his kind of comedy is to start off thinking you're going someplace and then completely go off the path. And it was worked really well for him. Um, I think of Cosby as the man formerly known as Cosby because there's a lot of people that are upset at him over giving Spanish fly to women or whatever, and I mean giving them um, um, drugs and having sex with them against their will, and that's fairly unforgivable, um, seemingly unforgivable. I mean, you can forgive it. The thing that's really sad about it is that there's all this light comedy that you really like about Bill Cosby, and then you've got this guy. You got the guy behind it, and but you have to look at yourself, just like Jesus told the men who were going to stone the woman. Who here without sin to cast the first stone. And I'm a similar guy, but I'm similar to Bill Cosby. It's just that I never went out and got a woman. There was a few times I did. I was in a bar, and there was a Jewish lady, and I was drinking, and I wasn't like completely aware of how taboo this was, but she was in mourning, and I coerced her to have sex, and you know, weeks, months, years later, I realized that this is like a big, major sin in the Bible, and I just was not sensitive. I mean, when I was drunk, I was not, you know, I can't, and I've forever regretted that one thing that happened in the past. There was one case where there was this woman who I had contacted somewhere up in upstate New York or whatever to give me a blowjob, and and that led to sex, and her car got impounded, and I went with her to where it was impounded, and I paid the fee to get it out of, you know, to get it out of the where it was stored, and she couldn't imagine any guy doing that. And she just went around to guys, and I guess gave lots of guys blowjobs and stuff. But to her, it was like really strange for a guy like me to go out there and and pay for her, because to me it was an order of gratitude, um because for me it was an experience that I've never had. And it was the and that's the way it is with me and sex, is that I've never had certain kinds of experiences. And the way I think about porn stars is I think of them as kind of heroes in a way, um, because I can find women that are beautiful in the world. I don't necessarily like all the other sex positions. I could do without a lot of them. I think the only one that is very interesting to me in VR is missionary. I didn't even know what missionary was. I thought it was a different position, but when I realized what it was, I was like, face to face. That's the one I enjoy. I like looking in the face of the woman. And blowjob that I had from that one lady, um, my my feeling about that was that it was like, okay, this has got some sensation to it, but I can't really. It's it's not the way they portray it in porn magazines as being fantastic. Your own hand can produce, because you get the feedback and you know how to respond to it and where to go and touch what. Um, just certain thoughts will arouse you, and or me, certain. And it's like the more disgusting it is, the more whatever actually. And what I've determined is that the sperm, if you masturbate a lot and you see the sperm, you associate that with the experience of having an orgasm as a male. Um, you can put that anywhere, put that sperm anywhere, and it will make you get off. Okay, and that's what those facials and all that stuff. And I believe in VR is going to fix that, because you don't have to see the sperm on the woman's face. It doesn't have to be there. All you need is the woman's face and the the expressions of arousal. And that's the only thing that really matters. But I but it the the splooge on the face and in the mouth and all that stuff, it does have an effect. And it's because it reminds me of getting off. And um, it's sick. And I would never do it to a lady unless she asked me to. But I've never had those experiences of being with ladies, and I've steered clear of it because I was afraid of disease, and I didn't want to have children. I didn't want to pay alimony. I didn't want to be responsible for things like that. I didn't want to. Um, it was really most of my life I've lived apart from the female gender. Um, really not, only a few times actually being able to interact, but um, people who are autistic are a little bit like that. They don't like to hug because of the unpredictability of the nature of hugs. What how people are going to touch you, and so if you saw that Rachel Grandin movie, I think that was her name, Rachel Grandin. She created a machine to hug herself, and it's predictable how that would feel, and I think that's the reason why it was suitable to her. People go and eat McDonald's burgers because they know what to expect, but they don't like strange culinary foods. And I'm into strange culinary foods. I like different experiences, and I'm kind of an experience seeker in a way. Um, and I like frog. I like fried frog legs. I didn't know that I liked fried frog legs until I had fried frog legs. Some people would go, "Ooh, frog legs," and I said, "Well, it's just like chicken. It really is. It's actually dark meat, like chicken legs. It's the part that works the most. People who are vegetarian would probably have a problem with me eating meat or even frogs. I've had frogs, I've had shark's fin, I've had turtle. Most of that I had in South Korea. Somebody took me to a smorgasbord of like 15 different kinds of species or whatever of animal. And we were drunk that night, so I completely forgot what most of it was that I ate. But it didn't kill me. I didn't eat blowfish. I don't think anybody eats blowfish unless they've got a death, if they got a death wish, or self, if they're looking for a creative way to commit suicide. Um, the reason why I'm so free about talking about sex is that I'm a little bit crazy now, and my belief is that nobody is real in all of this, so I don't feel like I'm really risking anything. Um, it isn't like I'm going to make the news. Um, Even if I do make the news, I probably still believe that none of it's real, so it's very easy for me to talk about it. Makes things easier to talk about. And if the world is real, if all of this is real, if this is not a complete clone of the world I used to know, and filled with people that are constructed on the fly to test me or anything like that. See, that's kind of my point of view right now. And so it's fairly easy to put up videos up on YouTube. I don't think I have 5,000 subscribers, but I don't know if they're real. And so I tell people, and you've probably heard this from me before, that the internet is just borrowed schizophrenia. Schizophrenia the is the it's the mental illness, or it's a mental difference. It's a part inside of her. There, it's all these voices, or um, all these beings, imaginary beings inside your head that are um, constantly being. It's like you're walking around with a crowd of people behind you that are concerned about every little thing you do, and some of them are suggesting things to you, and it's very possible that it's a result of neurons not all completely talking to each other, and so some of those neurons are, I mean, some, it's like probably lots of little areas of the brain that are communicating stuff, but it's not collecting together, and it's getting mixed in and represented as different people saying stuff in your brain. It's possible that it's possible that's demon possession. Who knows? But the brain can do a lot of strange stuff. I used to think that the brain was an interface to a fourth dimension, and in that fourth dimension was stored your actual all your knowledge and stuff. That it's not actually in your brain at all. That's one of my beliefs. Um, but I wouldn't be able to prove that. I wouldn't know. There are people that claim they can see the soul and associated with the body, and you know, I wouldn't know. I mean, a fourth dimension would mean that this is a third dimension, and there's another dimension we can't see that might be a parallel. It's something that we can't touch because we're three dimensional, but there's a part of us that's the fourth dimension, which would be the soul, that would be associated with our body. And when this body dies and the soul separates, it goes off into its fourth dimension, and our three dimensional self just erodes. And so, I mean, if you look at a piece of paper and it's in two dimensions, what's the third dimension? The third dimension is that you're able to to do stuff outside of the limitations of that paper. So this is a if we're in three dimensions, what's the fourth dimension? It's not time, because time is one half dimensional. It only goes in one direction. You can't go back in time. So time is not another dimension. That's a half dimension, and it wouldn't even count as a dimension. It's just it. Time is merely choice. So what's the fourth dimension? The fourth dimension would probably be, or fifth or sixth. That would be being able to step outside of the three dimensional universe and into something else. And so it's like a parallel universe, like the quantum stuff tries to get into. I don't really believe in quantum mechanics and that there's a quantum reality, the parallel. My belief is that our instrumentation is not fast enough to detect all where the particles are. And what they're trying to do is it's kind of like particles bouncing around, and there's a potential that particles going to be in certain places at certain times, and if you could store a state on that particle, and if you could retain some kind of difference on what that particle is doing where it's at in that particular space, then you could store information there. You could probably do computation with it. That's what that quantum stuff sounds like. It sounds like they've been able to control a kind of a chaotic a kind of a chaotic property of particles or something, and they they've made up this thing, this quantum universe, and all this theory about all these dimensions and stuff that can't really be directly observed, and it's possibly that the instrumentation you're using to detect this stuff is not good enough to do it, to get that small. And so all you can so you get there's stuff there that you can't really observe, and you're making a science out of it. That was probably the reason why Einstein wouldn't touch it with the 10-foot pole, is what I've heard, is that he didn't believe in quantum mechanics. And he said that he had some line. He says that I don't believe God plays games, And so, anyhow, there is scientists that are working on that stuff, and I guess they've figured out how to store information or do computations with quantum stuff, things that are really small, and you know control chaos and stuff. But I don't know how I got to this from what I was originally talking about. That's just how I am. Yeah, I was talking about this borrowed schizophrenia. Well, the thing about it is that the internet, the people you talk to on the internet, while they're very helpful, and um, you're probably not ever going to be able to know them, and um, they're the good people that you interact with, that you call your friends on the internet, but you may possibly get to know them. Then there are the hecklers. And those people I consider to be in the same class as the random the random demons or whatever the fuck they are that schizophrenic people have. And so it's just borrowed schizophrenia, you know. And so it's really not worth even interacting with hecklers because you don't even know if they're real at all. And that there's the science of artificial intelligence now that they're working on um, agents, um, artificial intelligent agents on the internet, and companies could use this to try to simulate usage in a say a multiplayer universe in order to give people the illusion of other people playing, and maybe the case that there aren't other people playing, that they're all bots controlled with AI, and they've learned from the playing styles of other people playing the game, and that you're only playing against AI and you're not playing against other people. What if some of the hecklers were the same way? You could make the same kind of judgment about the hecklers. It would incense them, it would piss them off, but the one thing you'll notice about hecklers is they have nothing of any significance to add to their rebuke, to their heckle. They don't rebuke. They don't say what it is in particular that they're offended by or anything like that. They just say simply the same shit every time. And it's like there's no difference between one and another. It's like none of them have any unique qualities. And so if that's the case, then you can write them off as being an AI agent that is experimenting with social engineering and social interaction, trying to control you. It's possible the guys are just sitting down with these books with certain phrases, and they say, okay, if I say this phrase, the procedure says if you follow this phrase, you're going to get this response, and then you can follow through, and eventually you'll get this kind of response. You know, they're following a certain algorithm, possibly. Um, there would be people out there like that. That's kind of social engineering, is that you're following a procedure in order to get a certain kind of outcome. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to make the other person look like a fool whenever, and do it without investing any actual thought, okay? Because you're using this procedure, you're using some book that's telling you if you do it this way, then it'll get this outcome. Let me tell you, that's what psychopaths learn to do. And, you know, that's Psychopath 101, is how to do social engineering on people and manipulate them and steer them the right way. The easiest way to control those people or keep those people from bothering you is basically just shut them up. You don't have to tell them to shut up. All you have to do is either ignore them or completely systematically through software make them not exist. And they'll get upset of it because they can't interact with you anymore. And that's the beauty of the new internet age. It's probably the reason why people are getting so why the internet is making people so mad and dividing people more than bringing people together, is that there are the capacities to filter out people that make you that offend you, and that's that's probably that's the thing with the internet, is they don't put too much faith in technology. It's probably not going to bring people together as much as you think. And so the thing to do is to realize there are people out there that empathize, and they put up information. Some people are trying to sell it. Some people provide it for free. In the book, it's in the Bible, it says, "Don't hold back good." You know, if you hold back good, then does that says something about your character, your empathy. You know, if you are really intent on everybody having something good, and you're holding it back from them for a certain amount of money, if you don't need the money, you know, why do it? Why do it that way, and why even put it out there at all? You know, if you're going to hold it for ransom, what if it's a spiritual gift that God gave you, and you're holding it back away from people? But some people would say they don't believe in God, but that's just them. That's their opinion. You know, that's the thing to realize is there are people in the world that don't believe in certain things, but that's not going to limit your capacity to be who you are. And then they'll just say that, well, you're crazy. You're believing in make believe stuff. And I would say, yeah, and you're lacking dimension. You don't have enough dimension. You don't have enough imagination. You're stuck in a physical reality of the here and now, and you have limitations. Your limitations are your capacity to imagine. And so, if you don't believe in Santa Claus, or you don't believe in the Easter Bunny and things like that, pretty soon you're going to be stuck with reality, and reality might say to you, "You're a complete worthless fool," and then you'll commit suicide. But for those people that have imagination, they can get around any of that, and that's the value of imagination. But I don't believe I'm imagining God. I believe God's really there, and I don't believe I'm imagining there was a Jesus. I believe there was a Jesus. And people would say, well, how can you talk about Jesus and still talk about porn and stuff like that? And it says, because I think Jesus can see past that. I think God can see past that stuff. You know, that I think God can see past the racism and stuff. God can see all men's hearts. You know, and can see behind the thick the thick skins that people keep to keep themselves from being hurt, or to avoid being there are people who would go to a comedy club where somebody is offensive, think that they can handle it, and then go home, and at night they might actually be thinking about some of the things that are said, and that might mar them for life. You would not know. They wouldn't show it in the club, and usually when people laugh in such clubs that are into offensive stuff, for some people it's catharsis. For other people, they laugh because they're embarrassed. And they're embarrassed for the comic on stage because they can't imagine the guy's that stupid. They're embarrassed. That would be probably the reason why they're embarrassed the most, is they're embarrassed that there are people in the room that don't understand the philosophy that was being done. And so they're laughing, but they're kind of laughing in, these guys are complete fools, laugh. And people think it's funny, think it's good. That's not good. That's a response to ignorance. And so I think the thing is that what those communities need to do in such clubs is, whenever they tell the jokes, to have a questionnaire and collect people's feelings, what they felt about certain jokes, and list out the jokes. And, how did you feel about this one? How do you feel about that one? Collect the information together. I think you'll find that they wouldn't speak it up, they wouldn't heckle it, but they were completely offended by certain kinds of things. And then from that, you could learn to shape your discussion. But if you really don't care about anybody, you can get anybody off the street who can do that.